if we look at all of our services, everything is on, we're on digital platforms, whether it's, our council, our electricity, our airlines, whatever it is that we need to access, a lot of the products and services we access digitally. And so what are the types of disabilities? So to better appreciate the significance, I think it's really important to understand, some of the disabilities that, digital accessibility could, there are. So these include visual impairments, hearing impairments, mobility impairments, cognitive impairments, and more. It's essential to remember that accessibility is not just about disability. It also benefits individuals with situational or temporary impairments, such as those caused by injury or environmental factors. If, a lot of us wear glasses, and sometimes if the font is not very clear on websites, we sort of struggle to read the font and understand what is going on. So I think it's really kind of important to consider all of those things. We're going to launch another poll now. Okay, fantastic. So 80% of you are saying no, 20% are saying don't know, not sure. Again, a very clear reflection. Not all disabilities are, they're visible. Some of them can be non-visible. So for example, if somebody has, and there are some very clear examples of it. So for example, if, temporarily, if you're unwell and your hands, if you've been hurt, for example, you've got RSI. So that might be a temporary disability, but it might not be visible unless the individual tells you that. It might not be visible. Things like dyslexia, they're not visible at all. So unless someone discloses that they have dyslexia, it's not visible. So I think those are the kind of things to just be mindful of and aware of. And how do we kind of create, products and services that are truly inclusive and accessible. Just to kind of move on, and in the chat, what we can do is at the end, what we can do is look at, maybe you can provide some examples of non-visible disabilities. It'll be good to kind of understand what your ideas are around what non-visible disabilities mean to you. So this is some of the disability data. As you can see, the number of citizens with disabilities will increase significantly with the aging of the EU population. So 1 in 6 people in the EU have some form of disability. By 2020, this is some of the old data. We're waiting for some of the latest data. 120 million persons in the EU will have multiple or minor disabilities, and 80% of disabilities are not visible. So you can see this sort of, it's a huge number. And unless organizations, we look at how we can make our products and services accessible, especially everything that's, on the web, we're really going to kind of struggle to work, to support people who have either permanent or temporary disabilities. So accessibility, again, there's a really good case for making sure that, accessibility is really important, thinking about accessibility when designing products, designing services. So again, time for a quiz. What is the number of internet users worldwide at present? Thank you for that. We've got 50% who are saying it's 5.16 billion and 40% who are saying it's 10 billion. There's also 33% actually, and 17%, 7.99 billion. The correct answer is when we last saw the data, it was 5.16 billion. So there are totally 5.16 billion internet users globally. Our population is 7.8 billion as of last count. Again, we were looking at the data this morning. So, you can see that there's still quite a number of people who don't have access to the internet. However, 5.16 billion people who do have access to the internet. So you can imagine that, the services, and all of our services are digital. So it's really, really important, again, just to, I'll keep repeating myself, to ensure that our products and services are accessible. So, from this graph, we can see that, 5.16 billion internet users, 4.76 billion social media users, And this was, 2023, earlier this year, this was the data that was released. So again, when we look at the number of people who are trying to access digital services, it becomes really, really important to just make sure that everything is, accessible. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact of digital inaccessibility. Um, you know, so when we look at, digital inaccessibility, it can have so many consequences for individuals and society as a whole, because it prevents people from fully participating in the digital world, including accessing websites, using software applications, and engaging with online content. So, there's a lot of talk around digital exclusion. Um, and, this is one of the things that contributes to digital exclusion, because this kind of exclusion affects, personal lives, but also restricts their educational and professional opportunities, as well as attainment, where everything is going online, especially since COVID. It's really, again, important. I'll keep, sort of repeating myself that it's to ensure our products and services are accessible. So, individuals can access it. Also, by embracing sort of, digital accessibility, we can empower people and include everyone, and where we can foster sort of, make it more equity and diversity. We keep talking about diversity, we keep talking about equity, globally. And I think this sort of aligns with that, because when we make services and products accessible, people are able to engage with it, people are able to move forward, learn, use the services in various different forms. So I think, what has happened in the last few years, and we've seen this, when people think about digital accessibility, it's always a second thought, but it shouldn't be that. So when we are designing products and services, we've got to think about it from, the outset. So, and I can give you this example. I can cite an example, for our own organization. When we started a few years ago, we didn't think that well about accessibility. We didn't consider it into the design. However, in the last few years, what we've done is we've sort of completely changed that. And our website is very much around aligning and making sure that it's accessible. It's ongoing piece of work. It sort of never ends. It's constantly, we're making it better. We're looking at feedback. So, that's, as an organization, it was really, really important for us to make sure that our website is accessible, but also some of our brochures and information that we share with our end users and stakeholders is accessible. So I think organizations have to just kind of start thinking about it, or, those who haven't started thinking about it, to ensure that services and products are accessible. When accessibility is incorporated from the outset of digital design, it creates inclusive experiences. It also enhances usability, and convenience for all users, regardless of their abilities. So, an accessibility approach works when there is a top-down approach, and this is, working with various different organizations. We kind of look at it where there's buy-in from management, senior leadership teams. There is a high success, they are more successful at adopting, an accessibility first approach, because it kind of, it comes right from the top. It's, across all of the different layers of the organization. There are some examples, of accessibility. So what are the factors to be considered? So, use of clear headings and subheadings, digital device friendly navigation, visual elements such as colors and contrast, all of those things can be considered. Then, for example, captioning and transcripts, structured website designs. So when when people are designing websites, to kind of look at the wireframe and make sure that the structure flows, it links to each other. And when a user is using it, how easy is it for them to navigate the space? So these are just some of the examples that I've used, and they definitely have a positive ripple effect throughout. I think the other thing is that it also improves SEO, market reach, and brand reputation. So, organizations that are, when you look at the SEO, so for example, our previous website compared to our new website, our updated website, our new website, we did a whole new build. We couldn't build on the older website that we had. We, our SEO has really, really improved, but also from a branding perspective, it's sort of more engaging. And we're looking at all of that. We're looking at how users are engaging with the website, and we're constantly making those tweaks. So I think, by building accessible experiences, we are really making sure that no one is left behind, and we can truly, truly make sure that, it's an inclusive digital landscape. Um, I mean, there's also, most recently, there's also been a lot of evolution around accessibility legislation. There's going to be another session on November the 10th. Please feel free to sign up for it, where we're going to dive in a little bit more deeply on some of the accessibility legislation, especially in the UK as well as within other countries. So we really focus on the legislation around the UK, but with the other countries, we'll just kind of touch on it a little bit. So, again, there's lots of accessibility legislation and standards and guidelines that are coming up. And, some of them have been sort of the Americans, the ADA in the United States, the EAA in the European Union, then Web Content Accessibility Guide developed by the W3C. There's also the WCAG 2.2 guidelines that have become live now. And that really talks about, where you align your website against those guidelines, and you can be rated based on how well you're aligning with those guidelines. So you have a AA or AAA rating. And I think those are things that are, it's driving compliance. It's driving sort of, making sure that organizations are, ensuring that the services and products are accessible. And I think it's a good thing because it's driving compliance, it's driving engagement, it's driving buy-in. So, accessibility legislation, it continues to evolve globally. And, there are some heat maps and at the end of the second session, we will share some sort of an ebook with you with some of this information. So if you wanted to explore it further, you can do that. There are some countries that have started mandating specific requirements. So, for example, in the UK, we have the PSBAR 2018, which mandates, public sector websites to be accessible, or, if you're sort of a utility company, if you're a bank, to ensure that you are accessible. So in terms of engagement. So it's really kind of crucial for organizations, to stay up to date with some of the legislative changes and to understand what the impact is on their business. We can help in the following ways. We offer boot camps. We also offer apprenticeships. We offer consultancy services as well as collaboration on projects.